Hey, welcome to the last video for this installment. We're looking at chapter 5.4, which is about equilateral triangles as well as isosceles triangles. So question number 7, we can see that it's a rather complex diagram. It's got two triangles and they share a side. In fact, one of these triangles is equilateral. It's the one here on the bottom, right? You can see the tick marks. All three sides are the same length. And the other triangle is isosceles, right? And I know this because it has two congruent angles, and that's the converse of the base angles theorem. Yeah. All right. So let's start with this. Let's start with the equilateral triangle. Okay. So because it's equilateral, we know that it is also equiangular. Okay. So all three of the angles we know are going to be congruent, and the only number that would work and still have a sum of 180 is 60 degrees, right? So we have three 60-degree angles. Okay. But notice that right here we have a right angle. Okay. And so what that's telling me is that this other acute angle here is going to add with 60 to produce a sum of 90. Okay. So this is going to have to be 30 degrees. That's the only number it could be, right? 30 and 60 are the only, it's the only way we can add up to 90. All right. So we've got most of the angles solved for now, except for the two base angles here. Let's turn this figure around. Okay. So this is an isosceles triangle. Okay. We could even go ahead and mark the two sides as congruent. And these two angles down here are going to be congruent. Okay. So now I need to ask myself, what number could I add with itself and then also add with 30 to get 180? Okay. Or put another way, right? If this angle is y, then this angle would be y as well. Sorry. So we have y degrees, and 30 degrees, and we know it has to add up to 180. So y plus 30 equals 180, right? That's true. 2y plus 30 equals 180, just simplify. 2y equals 150, okay, just subtracted 30, and then y equals 75. Okay, so just divided by 2. Okay, so we found the value of y, great. Okay, so that's 75 degrees and that's 75 degrees. I guess we can go ahead and write it in. 75 degrees, 75 degrees. Okay, now what we want to do is find the value of x. Now, look, we have the value of y. Let's go ahead and substitute it right here to figure out how long this side is. Okay. So if we do 75 minus 25, that's 50. Right? So this side is 50 units long. That side is 50 units long. That side is 50 units long. Remember, that was an equilateral triangle. And now, just turning my paper this way, right, I'm looking at the isosceles triangle. All right, this has two congruent sides. So if the side on the left, or I should call it the leg, right, if this leg is 50, then the other leg is 50 as well. Okay, and so since it was labeled x, which we know has a length of 50, then x equals 50. Okay. All right. So we had to do, that was quite a mental exercise there, right? Using knowledge about equilateral and equiangular and isosceles and all these complementary angles we had to use right here. All right, let's try another one. Okay. So once again, we have two triangles that are fused together. They share a side, okay? This kind of larger triangle is isosceles, right? It has two congruent sides. So we know that it's going to have two congruent angles. Let me just go ahead and call this one x as well. Okay. And then the smaller triangle here is equilateral, right? You see the tick marks. So all three sides are the same length. Okay. We already know that for an equilateral triangle, the angles are all 60 degrees. So that's 60, and that's 60. Okay. I'm not sure whether that's going to help us at all, but at least we wrote it down. All right. So let's solve for x first. Okay. If we look just at the isosceles triangle, we see that we have an angle measure of 40 degrees, an angle measure of x degrees, and another angle measure of x degrees. But because of the triangle sum theorem, the three interior angles have to add up to 180. Okay. So I can write x plus 40 is equal to 180. All right, so that's 2x plus 40 equals 180, or 2x equals 140, or x equals 70. Okay, so I now know that that is a 70-degree angle, and that is also a 70-degree angle. Now let's try to find the value of y. Okay, well, I see that there's a side here which has y in its expression, and there's another side here that also has y in its expression. Okay, but this also has x. Okay. Well, that would have concerned me at first, but now that I know what x is, right, I can just substitute that in, and I can write this as 70 minus y. Okay, so we're going to call this side 70 minus y. We're going to call this side 2y plus 10. Oh, and by the way, those two sides are congruent, which means their lengths are equal. So I can write an equation where I take this expression and set it equal to this expression. So 2y plus 10, the length of this side, will be equal to 70 minus y, the length of this side. Now let's add y to both sides. And then minus 10 from both sides. And then divide by 3. All right, so there you have it. The value of x is 70 and the value of y is 20. Okay. And to solve both of these problems, all right, we needed to use our knowledge about equilateral and equal angular triangles. We had to use our knowledge about isosceles triangles. All right, thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you guys in our Zoom meeting.